Hi there. Welcome to Balisong Meet the Makers. I'm your host, Chel Wong, and today we have Jerry Hom. Hom knives have been around for a while, and Jerry has been known for his designs such as the Basilisk, the Chimera, the Prodigy, Rhapsody, and even more. So thank you, Jerry, for coming on. How are you doing right now?
I'm doing good, and thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah, I honestly just want to know more. And so my previous guests, I've talked to you here and there, but I this is actually my first time kind of like talking to you face to face. But I do know, I guess, how long have you been in this industry for? Because you've been around for quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm probably one of the oldest brands at this point. And I started off as an enthusiast, just like most of everyone else. And it's like one of those things you love Bally songs, and of course, the next question is, how do I create my own Bally song? That's something that what's something that I would love to make. And that's how the original Basilisk came to be. I think G10 wasn't really used too much in the industry, and I did one of those knife kits. It was called a Typhoon, I think. And G10 is like really cool. So the Basilisk is like one of the first Bally songs to have like a two-color G10 handle. The OG, of course. And then I think it kind of took a while to catch on. I was working with someone named Rob Dalton. He kind of had a big controversy over his knives, but he actually helped me kind of take it off the ground. I think a lot of people who are enthusiasts, we don't have our own shops or anything. You kind of draw something up in CAD or even like a piece of paper, and then you're like, how do I bring this to life? And usually,
Yeah.
you kind of have to collaborate with an existing maker.
So was he like your machinist?
Funny enough, he was actually, I didn't know that he had a knife brand. He was supposed to be the person making just the G10. I was
Oh,
referred
okay.
to him, yeah, almost as Full Moon Manufacturing to do just the G10.
Okay.
And I didn't know he had his own knife line.
So also like how long ago was this when you were because I actually don't know how long you've been in this. I just know that you're one of the older brands.
Yeah, I guess the knife came out in 2007, and I started drawing it up in 2005 or 2006. So
Wow.
that is a long time.
Yeah, that's I remember being interested in like when I was a high schooler, which was like I graduated high school 2012 and being like I really want a butterfly knife and my parents wouldn't let me of course because I don't want my child flipping knives. And now I'm an adult, so I'm like I can do that. But like 2007 was I think that was even before when I was like started to get interested in it. I was just trying to like look it up and information was as knowledgeable, but it was like the Benchmade 42 was like the only thing I could really find back then. That's at least what people were talking about.
Yeah, and back then, you only had a couple different brands. There wasn't like it is now where you have so many options to choose from. Benchmade was kind of the main knife. I guess we're
Yeah.
going into kind of a history lesson here, but all of us remember getting them around that time for like $125, just something ridiculous. And I honestly I was pretty disappointed by my first Benchmade when I got my first Benchmade and I was in college, and it just it had like a lot of tap and play and just wasn't finally finished because they were cast. They were
Which one was
cast
that?
knives. I had a 43A.
Oh, you had a 43A. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's in the
43A.
4X. Yeah. Wow.
Um, but the first knife that really blew me away was the original Microtech Tachyon. So
Oh,
everybody
Tachyon
knows
1.
that mechanically, yeah, the Tachyon one, that was a fantastic knife. It was made by a guy named Mike Turber, who, I guess he's, to me, it's like the father of like the production mid tech, because I think at the time there wasn't a lot of like really well built knives, but that knife was. It was a production knife, and it had really great tolerances, really great machining.
I have a Tac 3 and I have a really shitty aluminum Tac 2 clone that looks like a donut, but like I know that the Tachions are held in high regard.
Yeah, the Tachyon, I think the one was where it's at because that one had a story. It had like it had a soul behind it. Had a person that was really motivated to make a knife that was really amazing. And after, I think Mike Turber went separate ways with Microtech, they still kept his design. They made a Tac 2 that was just, it's regarded as a good flipper, but mechanically it was like cast handles, it was soft
Hmm.
titanium. It wasn't anything novel. I think the one was just so much better built, and then the three, of course, kind of did not was not highly
I think that
received.
one's aluminum too.
It was aluminum, and I have nothing against aluminum knives, but it wasn't a well done aluminum knife, in my opinion.
It's also just really different from the Tac 2 from what I can tell. It just doesn't look like the same knife.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, there just wasn't um, wasn't a passion behind that project anymore. It didn't feel like that. And that's kind
Yeah.
of where it's at when you have like makers and brands and enthusiasts is that, sometimes you have like a lot of brands to choose from. And then, that's why I really admire guys like, the BRS guys, Lucas, Squid Industries, they're real enthusiasts. And
Oh,
that's,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where it's at. You want to create something that you love, not just something that's gonna, make a few bucks.
So you were an enthusiast way back when, and then your first design was, did you say the typhoon, was it? Or did I misremember?
No, no, that's from Knife Kits. That was just, this is before I even made anything. It was just something I put together that was you can buy from Knife Kits to make your own Balisong.
Ah, so
The
when
Basilisk
was
was the
your
first one.
okay? So when was the Basilisk first made? I have a G10 Basilisk. Unfortunately, I cut my thumb really badly on your other knife, the
Yeah.
Chimera V2, which I'm borrowing, so I can't really flip. But I have a G10 Basilisk here. When did the Basilisk first get created? When was the inception of that?
The first Basilisk, the original was released in 2007.
Dang! Wow.
And funny enough, it was like, nobody actually bought it. Like a few people bought it because it was new and everything, but
Sure.
when you're kind of new on the scene, it was used to be tough to get yourself out there.
Yeah. I
Not
think
quite
it's
like it
still
is now.
tough now. I still think that like there are a few like breakout like new makers, but there are a lot of makers that like try to get out there, and it's just hard, you know. You hear about the successes, but that's just the survival bias, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess there's a certain way to do it. You can. To me, it's like someone like Ricky Strable from EPS. He's relatively new in terms of. I know he's been working on it for a while, and we've all known him for a long time as a longtime enthusiast. And to me, like
Gotcha.
he's new, but he's also doing really well.
Yeah, he's one of the ones that I think is doing well. But I also think about how like I remember there's like the Akuma Matata, which I think only really like Blade Bias ever covered, and I don't think that guy is making knives anymore. So like there for every success, there's always definitely some people struggling, but like the Basilisk struggled. So like I assumed you were maybe discouraged at first. Like how did you keep going after that?
Yeah, so I guess it's you know, especially when you have you invest a lot of money into it, and then things kind of don't go your way. Uh, there's part of it you still you still love Bally songs, right? You still love
Ah,
Bally
yeah,
songs. You don't want to just make that be, to give up and quit. And sometimes you see that, and then it's a bit disheartening. Um, so it's tough to kind of mix coming at it from an enthusiast and then trying to leave that behind versus as a business that it's not really working out. So it's a bit of a conflict. Um, but it wasn't like I didn't own a shop or anything. I still had my day job. I was working for a aircraft manufacturer. So that's where I learned to model.
oh
Um,
yeah.
so that's kind of like where that one was at, and eventually things kind of caught on years later. I think part of this success is Lawrence Ho from Blade Runners made a YouTube video, like kind of like a parody on a pharmaceutical thing. And it was like, are you sad right now? Well, what you need is Basilisk, and it was a really great video. Lawrence and I are still friends now. We still meet up
That's
regularly and
great.
chat. I think BRS guys, we're all friends from a long time ago before we were brands. So yeah, Lawrence, I think maybe possibly it was Lawrence who had that video that got more popularity.
So this video helped spark off eyes getting on your product. I guess did that help it like start selling? Did that push forward for the next project or updating it?
Yeah, I think what happened was, it had a lot of weight in the handles, which at the time they thought people wanted that. People wanted like rear
Yeah.
heavy knives because that was kind of like the claim to fame of the Basilisk. It had these really large it was like G10, but then it had large stainless spacers.
Oh
So,
wow.
it's not favored now. Now everybody wants neutral, but at the time they said that knife was ahead of its time for the time. Kind of like one of the challenges is, you make a knife that could be a great knife, but for the wrong time. And as a maker, trying to keep up with what the preference is and what's hot for that time, the knives don't change, but the
Yeah.
preferences change.
That's actually also interesting because I was thinking about like again, you've been in this for a while, and so like when I first tried the IBAS, yeah, so I'm a relatively new flipper to the scene, I guess, and I do prefer light and neutral knives. And when I first tried the IBAS, I was like, I don't know if I like this at first. That thing is a tank, and it did start to grow on me. Funny enough, I had an IBAS, and then with like another knife, I traded that for a Grail, and then I ended up getting a Basilisk Elite, traded that for something else, and now I finally have a G10 Basilisk. All right, I'm finally keeping one of my Basilisks, but I've tried like 3 versions. So, did you do? Was the IBAS is more recent, right?
Yeah, that's the most recent iteration of the Basilisk. I'm trying to figure out how to get this camera working. Sorry, bear with me over here. Yeah, so the iBasilisk was the newest iteration of the Basilisk, and then I guess people were kind of they wanted a list of changes, and then one of the ones I kind of put in first was it's channel design and everything, while keeping the same features. And the toughest thing was this was the Basilisk is intricately machined. There's a lot of small details in there. Part of the reason why it costs so much is titanium's very time consuming to machine, and then you take that in a sandwich design and then you turn it into channel. And of course, I think um, manufacturing they basically said like it's just gonna have to take a while. It's just an expensive knife to create. Um, and funny enough, this knife was cloned, and the clone isn't titanium; it's aluminum. Because I guess they kind of
Ah,
looked at it and they were like, "Well, this is a pain in the ass to make, so we're just gonna make this out of aluminum." Um, but yeah, and this kind of had a few iterations as well. Some of the early prototypes they were even more rear weight biased, and we kind of revised that model
can you
to
hold it
remove
higher?
this. Oh, sorry.
There we go. Yes, thanks.
We removed as much material from the rear as we could, while also simulating like a spacer inside. Um, and then, of course, the latchless version didn't just delete the latch area. We moved that gap. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a quite a deep channel.
Well, that channel's pushed all the way to the rear. So,
Yeah,
tried my best to make this as least rear bias as possible. And I think some of the feedback was that they thought it could be more, um, you know,
neutral.
or more neutral. Yeah. But
Was it?
overall, a lot of people liked it. They liked it when they
How
tried it.
come you switched from sandwich to channel?
That was just a request from like from the community. They were like,
Okay,
make it in a channel. So yeah, so here it is.
I find that the community can be rather fickle about sandwich and channel. Like one sometimes one's in vogue and the other one. I feel like it ebbs and flows. But like, was it really difficult to get the to make it just channel?
It is hard to adapt the design. I think one of the things is that you want to try to avoid the collisions. Like the blade has to fit inside the handles, and then you don't have spacer options, so it's a little bit tough. And then of course from a machining perspective, it's how can they kind of like how can they make this cut? You can't just draw anything in a model and expect it to reach the machining. It just doesn't work
Yeah,
that way. There are always limitations, and depending on who manufactures it, it's like I the Tyrannus, which is a mid tech with Sean Grayson, Bally Ballistic. That channel is cut entirely differently. So they're just two different methods to do it, and some people may like one versus the other.
gotcha. So do you actually not machine your own knives? Like even
No,
now? Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
the knives are machined by Precision Plus. They're over in Michigan. They're it's the USA made. They do great work. I visited there several times, and I think everybody they're known for making OEMing a few different products and everything. But to me, it's like it's not just someone that you contract out and do it. It's almost like a true partnership where
Yeah,
they put in their input and everything, and they meet the quality standards that I'm looking for. And some
yeah,
people are like, well, you're selling out. You're not making your own stuff, and it's like, people have iPhones that are their iPhones are not made in house. I think very little things in someone's house are made truly in house. And kudos to everyone who does have their own shop, like guys at Machine Wise, Lucas, they make their own stuff, and I think that's fantastic.
yeah.
But everyone's business model is different. I think there's pros and cons to each one. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no control over it or QC. Sometimes people are like, oh, you can't QC your own knives. Well, it's not true. There are things you can do to QC it, and sometimes um, depending on the relationship you have with your manufacturer, you can get pretty close to what you would want if you had your own shop.
So I guess you have the Basilisk, but I know that you have a bunch of other knives. I know you have the Chimera, which is now on the V2, which I have in my hand right now, which
Thanks
is
for
known
picking
for
that up.
having. Yeah, well, this is a temporary loan, but I've always wanted to try this because of how this latch is just so neat, and this knife is so sharp. But
Yeah,
like,
it is extremely, extremely sharp. It's extremely sharp.
I learned that the hard way when I botched the fucking Z choker. Um, but I guess what I don't know if the Chimera was next. You have the Prodigy, you have the Tempest, you have the Rhapsody. What was next after the Basilisk?
After the Basilisk was the Tempest. So I guess the challenge of the original Basilisk was some of the quality issues. Um, yeah, actually I couldn't sell all of them because I didn't find the quality to be acceptable in a lot of parts. I still
Hmm.
have them here somewhere, but the Tempest was kind of like a focus on quality. I think that was a that was a collaboration with Todd Begg Knives, so it was quite a collab, and those were I think a lot of people do. Oh, it's Tempest is like my best knife. It's hand ground blades. They were just like really precise. Um, if you think back to like the spirit of like when I was talking about the tachyon being such a precise instrument, that was the Tempest kind of brought it even closer. I mean, that was like such a well finished knife. So this is the newest iteration of the Tempest, and I think it's not a Tempest V2. I think it's really meant to be a continuation from the original Tempest line because people have said like this is my finest knife, so I wanted to deliver on something where it kind of reproduces as closely as I can. Manufacturing wise, this is it's a bit of a different process. A lot of things have been upgraded, and Todd Begg Knives is no longer involved in the production of this one, but the person who ground the blades, who's an affiliate of Todd Begg, had hand ground these using the original fixtures. So it's pretty close. The blank was created by Precision Plus. Um, the handles, I used a previous shop before, but then Precision Plus helped me with the handles. And then after the parts came in, Lloyd Harner had done some further work on the handles to kind of make them properly fit right, and then I did my own hand fitment on these as well.
Very nice. That's a fucking gorgeous blade too.
Yeah, it's and that's the thing about the Tempest is that it's not like it's kind of the opposite of the Chimera where it doesn't have, those fancy latch features or anything, but it's just an old school like it's almost like a Rolex, it's like it's doesn't have
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a fine instrument. It is just a fine instrument. It has like it feels like a tank, like people who flipped it and held it at Blade Show, it's just you almost have to like see it in person. Like the pictures and videos just kind of don't do it justice.
How heavy is that?
Tell you, hang on.
Ooh, yeah, that is a tank.
Yeah, it's funny because
Wait, it's still going up? Oh, okay. I think it's
oh, I'm
starting to
sorry,
settle.
I'm messing with it.
There we
At
go.
4.7, this used to be considered light for a knife, where now it's like when you have squiddies and
God,
aluminum
yeah.
knives, it's like they're all in the threes, which
Huh?
five used to be the standard. Five used to
Yeah,
be the standard weight for a titanium knife.
like a alpha beast.
Yeah, and the Alpha Beast, no one used to say that was heavy, but now it's like considered to be like a tank, right?
Yeah. Nowadays, like I think the lightest titanium knife I can think of is the Gaboon, which is like 3.3 ounces. It's very light. I think it's like under it's like 3.1 to 3.3, and then the ultralight, aluminum was designed to be just kind of a gimmick, and that's under 3 ounces. But like even nowadays, a lot of the standard has pushed. Like I remember thinking like 4.3, the Kraken, that's standard. And then when the tsunami was first announced, it was like, ooh, 4.0 ounces flat. And then there's that comment we all remember. It's like, could you make it heavier? I don't think it would be enjoyable to flip at that weight. And then Lucas is just trust me. But it's definitely interesting to see how that has been trending. Have you had a hard time feeling like keeping up with the trends of the consumer and what they want? Because again, like historically, basilisks have been a bit heavier and more handle biased. So has it been hard for you to adjust your designs over time to fit the needs now, or
Um,
preferences, I suppose?
I would say definitely that's a resounding yes, just because it's like I said before, the knives don't change, but the consumer opinions do. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like you think about, some of these knives that have been around forever, it's like at some point, like the Alpha Beast, it was probably like the meta for flipping. And then once more people started getting used to aluminum knives when Squid Industries started getting really big, then everyone wanted lightweight neutral knives because that's what fit their style. But if you talk to some of the OG flippers, they can take all these quote quote tanks and they're really great with them.
Yeah,
And even guys like James Hill. James Hill is a friend of mine. I sponsor him, and he can flip anything. And to me, it's like it's not. I don't want to say it's not the knife, it's the flipper. I think it can be both, but
absolutely.
preferences are preferences. That's why you have a lot of different choices. But this is to me, it's like these are how I feel a knife should be like. Yeah, I don't like the idea of knives straying too far into toys. Even though I made, like the ghost that's pretty much a toy.
Yeah,
Kind of to satisfy some of the people looking for something cheaper. But my what I remember Balisongs being like was from my era, which is kind of like a long time ago.
actually, do you want to tell me more about the ghost? Like, how did you come to make that? And you wanted to fill a niche in the market, I suppose, because this is the only all G10 Balisong I can, at least to my knowledge. It's Ghost is spelled G10ST. It's a cute name.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a G10 synthetic trainer, but because it's just a play on words. Kind
Yeah,
of corny, but I think it kind of works for it. The Ghost was made. As you have a lot of younger flippers or people that want things like a squiddy, and they kind of want to not take flipping, I guess as seriously as something that will cut right through your hand, like the Tempest will. And I saw at a Blade show where a lot of parents came around with kids, and they're like, "Do you have anything that's really friendly to them?" And the cheapest thing I really had was just a full titanium bushing trainer like the Prodigy, and
yeah,
I kind of feel bad. They're like, "Well, I want to go get a Squiddy then," and it's like, like I have
yeah.
Squiddy, I like it, but it's not, it doesn't mimic how a real knife will flip. With the Ghost, I had this at a G10, even though G10's it's a pain in the ass, it's expensive to machine. Um, it can fracture over time. You can see like a little marks on it over here and stuff. But G10 is just like it's so cool. It's like it weighs a lot too. It's really heavy. So the first shocking thing people say is like I didn't expect it to be so heavy and flip like so heavy. I think it's
How
like,
heavy is it?
well, we can put it on the scale and find out.
Oh my god, 3.6. Wow, yeah, for a plastic knife, that's up there. That's heavier than some metal knives.
And when you flip it, it flips like a heavier knife. It flips like you're flipping either like aluminum knife, or even like a lighter titanium knife. It's pretty
Yeah,
bonkers. Like you don't expect, like it looks like those glow in the dark stars you buy for like $5 at like
I
Target.
know exactly what I had those on my ceiling growing up.
Yeah, yeah, and we all did. Everyone loves those things, and everyone asks me, they're like, does it glow in the dark? I mean, no, it doesn't glow in the dark.
Oh,
Light right now, it doesn't. It just doesn't glow in the dark. It's G10. It's just like solid G10. Um, and I think that I had to prototype this like 11 times because, uh, this will crack without these plates in there. So I have these steel plates in there that the bushings sit in. So this was
oh,
kind of like it was kind of like intricate to kind of make this thing.
yeah, a bushings plastic knife for like what, $100 or so dollars?
No, it's like $90, about
Nah,
$90. But
even
it
better.
has like a lot of play in it. You can see it's got like good amount of play. It's got tap.
Yeah,
It you just can't make plastic. Like I actually had one of them done where it was pretty tight, but then it just wasn't fun to flip.
yeah.
Just like
Even with bushings, it still has. That's so. I guess also, I know that you like G10, but you say it, you said it yourself that it's got a lot of difficulties. Have you considered making the Ghost in another more effective or more easy to work with material, or are you kind of just set on being like, this is G10, G10 feels nice, it weighs good? I don't know, let me know your thoughts on that. Like, or these other ghosts.
yeah. So I did have it made in carbon fiber. This
Oh,
really
oh shit.
odd carbon fiber with gold flakes in it. Like why
Oh
not?
shit, that sounds awesome.
Like go all out, right? Go crazy.
Hell
Marbled
yeah.
carbon fiber. So I didn't. This is like way too light. You may as well just get a squiddy. To be honest with you, same thing. I had this done in Ultim. It was like
Yeah.
expensive to create. It looks cool.
Ah,
Looks really cool, but it flips like shit. It's like it doesn't flip. Um, to me, it's just not fun. Like G10's the most fun feeling. It has the perfect weight out of all of them. Like this is also like the same weight as like a squiddy,
yeah. I mean,
or
like
no, less. I think it's less.
the Squiddy 8 is actually just Ultim.
It's also it's got like steel pins inside it to kind of give it more swing.
Wow. In the Ghost, you mean? In the Ultim
No, no,
Ghost?
in the Squiddy has steel, um, it's
Steel
got like steel
rods?
weight at the end.
Oh my god, I didn't even realize. All right. Yeah, huh. It's been a while. I had two Squiddies at some point, and then I've parted with both. But yeah, I guess yeah. If it's for you, I mean, obviously you make what you want to make, and you make things to your preference. And so even if the carbon fiber, oh my god, it looks fucking beautiful, and the Ultim looks nice too. But if it's not fun for you, then I guess it's just not worth it as a product to invest in and to manufacture and to distribute.
Yeah, I had people test flip them too, and it can't be just all about the looks. They kind of have to function as well. And to me, it's like this is if you want something to kind of display, you get a nice knife. I think this is for people who really just want to have a lot of fun flipping it, and that's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of.
true. The Ghost is really unique and cool looking, but it's definitely not exactly one of the most like mantle worthy kind of like show display thing. Actually, funny enough, I did order the Squid Industries Mako Shuriken just for kicks. It was like, oh yeah, it's like 30-40 bucks. That's gonna be on display. But I guess you were also talking about how you had the Prodigy, I believe, was like when parents would come up with their kids and you had trainers. I guess how did you make the Prodigy and other trainers? Is the Rhapsody a trainer as well?
Yeah, the Rhapsody's a trainer as well. Yeah, so that's the Prodigy, called the original Prodigy, the Prodigy A. And I think originally this was just kind of a render was I created a quick render and I was like, what do you think about this? And everyone's like, well, we would definitely pick that up. And it probably was one of the first, kind of high end trainers that was released. And I think, there just wasn't good options for trainers back then. And I think now we're
How
talking
long
like
ago was this made?
I want to say like 2012.
Oh wow, yeah. A lot of when I remember thinking trainers used to look so fucking ugly. Like the Benchmade trainers are just like butter knives with big holes in them. At least the holes in the Prodigy look a lot more intentional and a lot more like a stylized.
Yeah, even this is like, it's an old school design and people kind of like that about it. That's why I haven't changed that
Yeah.
blade. To me, it's like I wanted to make the blade more futuristic, but everyone's like, no, we kind of like this old school blade with the holes reminiscent of kind of how it is.
Yeah.
So, lots changed with Prodigy. Now it's longer, it's lighter. It's coming back out again.
I
And
love the handles.
yeah, these are just full CNC machine handles because I had that Benchmade trainer that you're talking about, and it was kind of poorly made. Like your handles kind
Yeah.
of slapped after a while. It just trainers are meant to be like a cheap thing that people messed around with and they kind of threw them away. So I didn't really want to have like a throwaway product. I wanted to have something like what if you had a trainer that was the same tolerances, like the same tolerance as a real quality knife. Like this has like very very little play.
This is one of
And
the this is a titanium knife, correct?
yeah, it's CNC titanium, just like you
Yeah.
would with anything else.
Back in 2012, a high-end titanium trainer in a sea of admitted just in a sea of garbage, to be truthful. And I know that there's a lot of I guess sort of gatekeeping and sort of hate towards trainers, but I can just tell by looking at this, like despite it being 12 years old, there's so much intentionality and heart in this design that is like this is a keeper. This is not something that you this is not the fucking garbage Benchmade trainers.
Yeah, and it's like to be fair, to Benchmade, it's just not what the consumer wanted at the time. Like just Balisongs in general were not high end knives were not what the consumer wanted. So companies make what people will buy. So
Yeah.
unless you're an enthusiast, you make whatever you want.
Yeah. And you wanted a trainer that people would actually keep and like and is like very strictly a trainer.
Yeah, very strictly a trainer. And then of course the Rhapsody kind of came out afterwards, had a more futuristic look to it. But it wasn't as well received. I think the balance people had mentioned that I couldn't get it right with this, and like everything else, it had a lot of handle weight to it, which kind of was a preference for a while. And then now it's I don't think you'll find many people flipping Rhapsodies right now because they're just they're just kind of heavy. And in this one over here, I mean, you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a cutout on the inside. And this was a prototype. I worked
Okay.
with Turbo Jackalope to kind of have this what a lightened Rhapsody. So, I would say it's one of those things that still in development, but it had a few iterations of it. A lot of weights and balances were changed. You can see this has got G10 spacers. The original Rhapsody had steel spacers. So, a lot of
Oh man.
things have been trying to keep up with what people want. But it's difficult because opinions change so often.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I think it's also probably a testament that you've been in this industry for so long. Like, you're a pretty mainstay name, at least. And even if people might not like Hom knives just because of where their preferences are, it's probably, I feel like it's a testament of like you've been in the game for so long, and you're still in the game, and you're still making knives. Um, I guess what else besides like, so while the Rhapsody maybe is not well received, um how did people receive the Chimera? Because I remember seeing that the latch and being like, "Whoa!" Actually, I do want to at some point ask you about latches, and because a lot of people don't care for latches, but I see that you've innovated on the latch itself.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing too with a lot of preferences is that everyone wants to go latchless now, but then I think originally when the Balisong, like the inherent design of a Balisong is to have a latch. So yeah, sure I can make latchless knives. I've done it with the iBassless. You can
Yeah.
remove it on a lot of my other stuff. It's easy to make a latchless knife. It's hard to make a knife with a latch that people will like. And I think the Benchmade 42 with the spring latch was the first one that people said like, oh, we kind of like this latch because it was a novel spring latch, and I think that's kind of where I think it should be. Like, first and foremost, Balisongs are knives. They're knives. And then flipping is like, how can you manipulate the knife? If you start removing features that no longer make it a Balisong knife, then you're not really flipping, like a Balisong knife anymore. And the latch is one of those things where it's so controversial that it really obviously it affects the weight. It's a piece of metal hanging off the end of it.
Yeah.
um, so with the Chimera, I was like, I want this to be a not everybody will buy a Balisong and flip it. I think a lot of them told me that they want pocket clips, and of course, pocket clips are like the worst thing for flipping.
Oh, yeah. I don't care about pocket clips at all, but I do at least appreciate the function of a latch just as a safety thing. Whereas a pocket clip, I'm just like, I don't like how it feels. On
Yeah,
a
and that's the thing about pocket clips too is that there are people that do EDC them and they use them as knives, and
Yeah.
you can't throw judgment at them because they are knives. They are knives before they're flipping, before they're flipping instruments. Like the definition of a balisong is it's a knife. Um,
Yeah.
so if it can't cut, then it's like it's not considered a knife. And then part of that is a lot of knives have detents. They have either a locking blade or they have a manual latch, and so that's kind of inherent to the design. But it's like if it gets in the way of flipping, then you have to make that decision. Well, do I want to flip this more or do I want to use this as a tool more? And most people who flip take them off, and no,
Yeah.
there's kind of no shade about that. It's like this is your preference to take them off, but I wanted it something that you don't want to take off. So that's why I have this retractable latch over here, and then it's also got to be kind of like dummy proof. It can't wear out. It can't just degrade over time. I don't want springs that can break or anything. So that's why it goes with a tension system that it's like you push it in
Yeah.
and you can pull it right out with some tension.
It's really easy and straightforward. Like you literally just show someone, you just boop, and you're like, oh wow. And being a latch, you just you pull it out, you give it a little squeeze, and then it's like that.
Yeah,
Personally,
that's
like,
kind of that was
oh,
the original intent with the Chimera. The Chimera is perhaps like my newest or future forward knife where it's large and it's light. It weighs as much as that Tempest over there, and you can see how
yeah,
much larger it is. It's just so much larger.
yeah. And comparing the basilisk with the chimera, you can just see it in the handles alone. And yeah, as I mentioned, getting completely devastated by this knife
Yeah, sorry about
with a
that.
latch. No, it's not your fault. It's my fault for trying to like. I wonder if I can see choker this. But like, yeah, seeing how sharp it is and with the latch, it's just oh my god. Yeah, I didn't even realize how long this was. Um, Personally, I do notice that the latch has like a slight balance difference, and if the safe side had just a little bit more weight to compensate for that latch, I would be like it would be perfect. I don't know if that's possible, but I don't know. I just think it's such a cool design, and I think besides this, I can think of like the DC Symphony, which had those like spring latches that also retract. But I mean, those are so expensive and rare.
I've got one of those. So
No
Dante,
fucking
who
way.
did the symphony, yeah, he's a friend of mine. And I think his knife is fantastic. I've got one, and his system is amazing. It's a spring retractable latch. But it's also expensive to produce, and people don't want to
Yeah, I
pay.
can.
They don't want to pay an extra $40 for their Chimera. So, and to be honest with you, a lot of people take the latches off anyway, even though it's retractable. They say,
Yeah,
it's kind of like if you want the best flipping, then sure you'll take the latch off. And this is when I did spacers for the
but I want
Chimera. You can see here,
both.
this has a
I,
hole that fits a weight. So it used to come with a weight inside here
oh,
to
for
compensate
real?
for the latch. So I had that for the Chimera V1. Um,
Oh man, I'm
but
sad it's not a thing anymore.
well, with the two, it's people would take this off anyway. So if you really, really cared about balance, you would just take off the latch.
Yeah, but I want the latch on and I want the balance. Like I know that Zippy has actually made latch. He's made several spacers. I think some are like no latch and some are with latch and like compensate maybe on the other side. So I guess me as a person who would theoretically have a Chimera because I don't know. This is a really cool knife. If it had that counterweight option, I'd be like, ooh, perfect. Just because I think the fact that the fact that the latch has intentionality and like a lot of thought and it doesn't get in the way, it's retractable, it's very convenient. I was like I don't want to remove it from that, it's part of the knife, even like a Benchmade 42 is a spring latch. It doesn't flip, it flips worse with the latch on, but it's part of what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And if there's enough demand, I'll make a spacer kit. I can make a spacer just like how it was done with this one. This was made as a spacer kit, and really,
That's
there's.
awesome.
I mean, if I'm being honest from a business end, there's no money be made in spacer kits. It's really
Yeah,
sold at close to cost, but it really, if it improves the enjoyment of a knife, then it can be made. Anything can be
for
made.
me specifically. But yeah, I know it's like a lot of times there are knives that have latches, and I have definitely removed some latches on some knives. Like again, I had a Basilisk Elite and I removed the latch, but with the Chimera specifically, I'm like, but this latch is special. This latch deserves to stay. I know. Let's see. You
Appreciate that.
also, what else? You've made so many knives, I guess. Tell me about, I don't know, what is the Tyrannus, I guess. I guess there's also the Spectre, which I honestly don't know much about at all.
Yeah, I think the Spectre was kind of a there's been a few knives. A lot of them are very similar. I think it's like they were incremental changes over time. I don't think I have Spectre on me, but it was the Spectre was almost like a production version of the Tempest, something that didn't have as much of a needle tip, and it
Hmm.
was made in production. So instead of being $700-800, it was standard $400 price. But it didn't have any fancy features. A lot of people are fans of it because they EDC their Spectres. Um, but nothing was fancy or anything about it. It was just a well-made knife. And sometimes you just want like
Yeah.
to see a well-made knife.
I see on the website that it is 5 ounces, got a pocket clip and a latch. Perfect for EDC.
Perfect for EDC. But how many EDCers do you see now with Balisongs?
Yeah, it's mostly, I mean, there's pocket folding knives are just so much smaller and they're just so much, there's a lot that I think is, personally, I always feel like I don't go out of my way to buy a folding knife just because you can see by my pile of knives over, oh no, I'm literally spilling my knives. And I don't know, you can see my wall behind me, but like the fact is though, I guess if you're looking for an EDC knife, there's always just a more convenient option. But like Balisongs are just so fucking cool.
They
They're
are.
just so cool.
They are really cool.
I guess tell me about, like, is there like a knife in particular that you're really proud of? Like what would you say is maybe like your goal going forward, that's maybe like the best of what you've learned so far?
So I think one of the big lessons is it has to be attainable. Like I think some of the mid-techs like the Tyrannus and the Tempest, not everybody can experience those, and they're really like
Definitely more expensive.
yeah, like more expensive and hard to get. And I never really liked the idea of just knives being like tough to get. I want people, if someone wants it, you don't want to starve your customers of something that's tough to get. So that's why like the Spectre, for example, that was made because the Tempest was tough to get. So this is something that you can get something similar, but not have it be hard or expensive to get.
Yeah.
So I think like the Taranis and the Arashi, those were mid-tech projects. Both of them were with Sean Grayson, Bally Ballistic, and his knives at the time. Those were also they were notoriously hard to get. This is a Mokutai,
Oh man, I haven't
the
even heard that
Mokutai
one.
Arashi, and this thing is just so beautiful, so
Oh my
expensive,
god.
and
Should I even ask how expensive?
yeah, I mean
Is
it was a couple $1,000s, and that
is
was at
that
the time.
Damascus?
Well,
Hand
yeah, this is
ground?
hand ground. It's I mean, this thing is just such a beautiful knife.
That's art. That is just art.
But not everybody gets to experience, something like this. And
Of
what
course.
the materials for each one was, I think, several $100s just for the Mokutai. And it's just not realistic to make this.
Certainly not at a production level. That is a beautiful knife. Wow. Oh my
I mean, these are
goodness.
essentially like, these are like concept knives that are, purchasable by the enthusiast.
So do you have plans to make like a Spectre equivalent to some of these higher end ones like the Tyrannus and the Mokutai, which I didn't even hear about until today?
It's tough. It's like, I think the question is what do people want? But I don't want that answer to be just make another aluminum knife. To me, it's like it's if there's an aluminum knife that is in like the weight preference that people want, it's got to be special. So I
Fair,
kind of
yeah.
have a bit of a project I'm working on right now that should be really impressive, I think, to people that are looking for something like that. And it's also not going to be just like an aluminum version of something that's already out there. I want it to be something that's kind of unique to my brand.
So are you telling me that you're currently teasing a future Hom aluminum balisong, the first Hom aluminum balisong?
Yeah, but I think that comes with its own challenges because it has to be attainable. So, like features are great, but features also cost a lot of money.
Of
And,
course.
it's kind of like how can you be innovative but also not break someone's bank account? I mean, these every knife in this picture, they're all already expensive.
Yeah.
But to me, like the Chimera meets like a, price per feature set.
Yes. I think the Chimera is very like let me check what the Chimera costs right now. On your website, it's
They're
gosh,
all in the $400 range. So
yeah,
the eye
that's
basilisk was so expensive. It was about $600, and
is
not
that
many
because
people can
of
afford that.
what is it exactly? Because you did say that there was a lot of specificity and things that were like. Can you tell me about what made the Basilisk so tricky to machine?
Well, the basilisk blade. Let me go pull one out. You factor in kind of like the intricate handle design in a channel. I mean, this is expensive to produce in a sandwich design. So having this titanium channel with it's almost like it's got like rounded edges. It's got jimping that goes all the way down. All the little details here have a lot of machining inside it. From the machining end, it's like it's just there's just a lot of machine time for each one. There were no
Gotcha.
shortcuts in this knife. It's like it just takes a long time to produce. Um, I think my design pet peeve is when I see a knife comes out that has just plain solid handles. Like it kind of drives me nuts because there's no uniqueness to it. And a knife has to speak to its design. You have to see it and be like, you know what, I can tell who that's from. Like if you look at Audi,
Yeah,
you look at Porsche, BMW, you can tell that those are from those brands. It's like
for sure.
they're not generic. It's like I don't want to have something that's generic. I want something that's different, but close enough to everything else I produced.
So actually, on that topic, speaking of brand recognizability, when I see a Hom knife, I recognize that it's a Hom knife at least most of the time. Can you tell me, I guess, what would you say is like a signature to your design philosophy that you feel like makes a knife recognizably yours?
I think if you asked the crowd, they would say it's a pointy death tip, but that's not the case anymore. But to me, it's like it's a cohesive design. They're not just a bunch of shapes thrown together. Anyone can kind of put in, a hole here and a slot there. But there's it has to be cohesive from design. It can't just be something that's a you know I, I think about something like hood scoops they put in cars. You don't want to just slap a hood scoop. You want to have it be, cohesive to where it flows air in the right way. And so that's kind of like where I got the inspiration from is, like it's like functional art, but almost like the design has to work. Like everything's kind of like symmetrical in ways. It's not like
Yeah.
yeah, it's visually pleasing.
It's funny because the Mokutai latch, I saw that, I'm like, that is a Hom ass latch. Just seeing those circles, and I was like, why do I associate like these circles with Hom knives? And it's just a thought that I had. But I definitely feel the intentionality, especially like the chimera, like these. It's also interesting. Can you tell me, like, are these G10 slabs? Are these acrylic? What are these? What are these liners underneath the metal slabs on top of the scales? I guess.
Yeah, so it's either, I mean, depending on which model you have, the one you have is G10. The one I'm holding in my hand, this is, Ghost Jade G10 for this premium dual tone anodized one.
That's so
Um,
fucking cool.
this is carbon fiber.
That's so fucking cool. Holy
And,
shit.
the intention behind it was to have it have, the same volume in your hand, but not weigh like 6 ounces. It's a big knife, it's a large knife.
Yeah. Wow. I just think that's so cool. And like that is not something that happens by accident. Like I don't know other knives where the G10 is the liner opposed to the scale and the metal is the scale.
Yeah, I think the closest thing is the hybrid rep, but I think those are titanium under titanium, if I'm not mistaken.
How did you get the idea to make G10 and carbon fiber liners?
Well, the original, funny enough, the original design was supposed to be off of a concept called the Sentinel that was supposed to be for the Jersey Devil, where these were going to be solid tie handles, and then of course the hole over here was supposed to have a red space underneath. And so
This
I
is
kind
a
of adapted.
different Sentinel from the Jimpy Sentinel, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the names are kind of,
Yeah.
I don't want to say common, but it's like they can be kind of
I
overlapping in
want a
some
cool
cases.
sounding name.
Yeah, I want a cool sounding name. So it was a design from a JDBA design that I had, and I kind of wanted to have the details underneath accentuated underneath the tie.
It's I love it. I honestly love, like, I have a I bought a Balisong used from someone else that did a, it's silver on the outside but with the anode being on like the interior. That's always like such a clean, classy look, and I love how that blue pops out from underneath the metal.
Yeah, and it's a liner because if you had it to be just like like an inlay, for example, it could either fall out or be expensive to produce. So kind of had it as a liner.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if it was like if, because I know you said G10's hard to manufacture, but like I was like, are these liners like prone to breaking, or is it like pretty consistent as long as you don't disassemble your knife too much?
Yeah, they're not prone to breaking because the tie takes all the heat.
Yeah.
It's almost like an exoskeleton where the Zen pins go into the tie. They don't go into the G10. They go through the
No way,
G10
really?
into the tie. So they're
Oh.
supported by the tie, um, not the G10.
And is the carbon fiber one lighter by any, or is it negligible?
It's lighter. People say they can feel the difference. When it comes to pure ounces, it's very little difference, but when you
Sure.
flip it, you can feel it.
Gotcha. That's, oh man. Like I can't wait to be able to flip again because my thumb hurts. But I'm like, I can't wait to try the Chimera more because out of the knives that I've borrowed, I'm just like, oh, this one is definitely like one to have on my list. I
Yeah,
guess. Oh, sorry. Go on.
it's it's S35. I mean, blade steel doesn't get talked about in Balisongs because it's almost like nobody cares about blade steel, but everything, all the live blades on here have S35 on them.
I feel like S35VN is oftentimes considered kind of like a really common balance. Like I feel like for me, like a hardness is really important. More to me, more important than edge retention, because I do care about, like, you will drop a balisong unless you were actively not flipping it. You're gonna drop it.
Yeah, you will
Um,
drop a Balisong. There's no doubt about it. You will drop a
yeah,
Balisong.
and like, well, now the hot new thing is Oh shoot, what is it called? When MagnaCut. MagnaCut's like the hot new thing, which has like theoretically it's like stronger and has more corrosion resistance and edge retention, but it's also more expensive too.
Yeah, and it's like, price still matters. So it's like, do people love, you know, carbon fiber and titanium magna cut, but do people want to pay for that? When it's time to pay for it, it's if you can charge unlimited amount of amount of money for a knife and then put all the features in, we make everything out of Mokutai. But price is real. Like, can you manufacture at a proper price point?
Yeah, I personally, as a consumer, I would rather have like S35VN over Magna Cut. Just if it's a matter of like, would I rather pay more or less? I'd rather pay less. And S35VN, as far as I can tell, is perfectly competent for all of your Balisong needs.
Well, I disagree. I think S35
Oh,
is kind of a premium Balisong steel choice. I think 135, 154, sorry, 154 is enough for what most people are looking for. And I think people talk, they kind of talk about D2 and 440C as being like cheap steels, but they're not. They're decent steels for what they do. A lot of folders come in that.
yeah.
But nothing receives more abuse than a Balisong. So to say that, like, S35 is like a mid-range option, I disagree. I think that's kind of a high-end option.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to imply that it was a mid-range option. I just meant that MagnaCut is just even more expensive, and S35VN it's it's really good steel. I have had no problems with them ever tipping or the corrosion or anything. But like that's definitely a quality steel that like between that and MagnaCut, I would rather S35VN because it's cheaper and I am well, I'm Chinese and I'm a cheap bastard.
Well, I mean,
Except when it comes to knives, I guess. Just,
and that's okay. You buy what you love.
I
That's what
sure
money's for.
fucking
And
do.
money is there to make you happy and support your life.
My knife. Uh, I guess I have two questions left for you. One of which is, what would you say is a little known difficulty about your process of making battle songs? I know that you've said things here and there about like little known difficulties, like the IBAS was shockingly, or at least I didn't realize just how much harder it was compared to other knives. Is there anything else that you'd like to point out? Is I remember actually before we started the show, did you want to go into that?
It's I think the two hardest things are kind of keeping your customers happy and, almost like balancing what the customer wants and what can be created in manufacturing. And I think that probably goes for everybody. Um, we all, especially as enthusiasts, you make what people will love. You make what will you think will flip good, and when what flip good, changes, then it's difficult to kind of create things that it's like that people will like. If the opinion just keeps on changing, and the opinions change so rapidly in the
That's
Balisong
true.
world. So to me, it's
Yeah.
like rapidly changing opinions is the toughest thing. Like, you can be it one day and not it the next day.
Yeah, I mean, like the Kraken was so it was like the hot thing, and now everyone's just like, it's it's just a Kraken. Oh, and then they start to and here,
Yeah, no, I've got one. I think Lucas he makes great stuff, and especially at the price point that's very important. He's a friend
yeah,
of mine. We hang out and stuff. Um, and he has his own challenges, and I think he's kind of facing some of it now, where like he's seeing a lot of competitors come in, and now they're when you're at the top, everyone kind of guns for you.
that's true. But also, I remember you were talking about Instagram. Did you want to go into that?
Yeah, so Instagram, everyone's kind of going through this right now, where we're all being censored in many different ways, and it's really disheartening because I think it's like everyone started from different places. Some of us came from Jersey Devil or Blade Forums, a long time ago, USN, and then everyone converged on Instagram. Instagram and Facebook, they're the same company, and they're like, they kind of set their own rules. If they don't like something, then they can just kind of silence you, and there's like no recourse. And that's like, it's so messed up. Like kind of, they're like playing God in a way, and it's like, like what if you don't want to just look at, vegan food options or people doing dancing and stuff. What if you like ballet songs? I like ballet songs. So for them to say like we don't want to let you enjoy your hobby, it's kind of messed up. Um, but kind of like talking about alcohol in the prohibition era, there's the enthusiasts are all there. They're all there, and they're going to find a way to make this work. I mean, if you look at the gun community, guns are not really allowed on Instagram either, but they have their own forums and groups and things to get together, and they find ways to kind of go around it. I'm hoping the Balisong community does the same thing, so we can kind of like rebound from this. Because to me, it's like when people say, "Oh, the community is dead," I don't think the community is dead. They just don't know how to find each other, and that's the main thing about
Hmm.
community is you got to stay connected. So
Yeah.
if you're not connected, then it's tough to be a community. But in all censorships, throughout history and everything, people have found a way. So how can we now find a way to kind of get around this?
I know that there was a push to move to another social media platform, but it didn't really take off as far as I could tell. Like with I used to use Twitter a lot. I still do use Twitter, but once Elon bought Twitter, it just became an even less functioning social media platform because I can't even see what my friends are saying. It's only like the For You tab is just all of the viral shit. And then the following tab is just all the viral shit that is retweeted and quote retweeted by who you're following. And it's just a lot harder to be like, my friend's just tweeting about their dog or just random stuff or just asking questions. It's a lot harder to interface. And especially also like April Fools, I tried to post stuff about my day and I wanted to ask questions and I was blocked for the day. Instagram said, nope. And I was like, oh shit, I can't ask if the fucking Mako Shuriken is hardened, which I'm pretty sure it's not.
That's kind of how it is. So we don't. There's no solution that's known for right now. Maybe we'll go back to forums. Like who knows? Like
Yeah.
so. I think it's one of those things that I don't think people who are enthusiasts that truly love ballet songs should give up hope. But
Yeah.
it's just there's always something next. Like you can't stop the people. That's not in the spirit of how this is. You love ballet songs. Don't stop loving ballet songs because Instagram says like, oh yeah, you shouldn't like this. Like, no, you do what you
Yeah.
fucking what you want to do.
I know that there's Discord communities, but like well, the thing about Discord is that there's no discoverability. And I joined the Balisong community Discord, but admittedly it's kind of a cesspool and I did not like the vibe there. But like Instagram has well, like I was gonna say that Twitter, everyone is still on Twitter and people have left and gone to all these other platforms. And I was just like, I'm just gonna stick it out. With Instagram, I think people are honestly just gonna stick it out and hopefully we can find ways to be able to talk and share our passions without Instagram being like, nope.
Yeah, what I mean, if I were to take a guess, and we're seeing with TikTok because
Oh,
TikTok
that's
came
true.
on and they're kind of having this huge battle, and of course now the government's getting involved. Instagram needs a real competitor that's going to let people see and look at the stuff they want with no ads or less, bullshit ads of all this garbage that's out there, and then it's going to be it. Then they're going to have to revert to their ways because they care about money. They care about money and
Yeah.
shareholders and all that crap. So if
Honestly, I'm shocked how little like Balisong is on Twitter. Like, I feel like there's no Balisong stuff on Twitter. It's all on Instagram.
Yeah, because it's been the place to be, and of course TikTok bans it too. So we can't really find solace in TikTok. But one day there's always gonna be something new. There's always gonna be something newer, hotter, and like Instagram has been kind of like a shithole lately. They wanted to just copy TikTok and just take over short form videos and put up pictures of either I don't know, just like viral stuff that's out there. And you
Yeah.
don't even see people who you follow. It's just all viral junk out there. Um,
Yeah.
so hopefully a company comes out with a new social media platform that keeps it real, and then we back.
Hopefully. I mean, it's hard to migrate, just a mass migration. Like again, we tried to do that with a platform I don't even remember the name of. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I know.
Honestly, I'm surprised it's just not on Twitter. I don't know if Twitter bans anything. I mean, Twitter bans at least a few things, but like, there's definitely a lot more allowed on Twitter than on Instagram.
Yeah, but no one should give up hope. Just kind of keep on flipping and
Yeah.
enjoy your hobby.
I guess my last question for you is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with?
No, I think that's mostly it. It's just, if you love Bally songs, stick with it. Like you can just because Instagram says no, like they're out there. When I went to the Blade shows and everything, I went to Blade West just as an attendee to see like what the community feeling was like, and it's all still there. People love Bally songs. They had the
Mm-hmm.
West Coast flipping competition. The energy was there, the enthusiasts were there, the interest is still there. Um,
Yeah.
so, but the perception, if you don't get out, if you're just looking purely at Instagram, it's like there's nobody left. And that's not true. So, Blade show's in a couple months, and I hope there's ways for people to see content.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I have talked to people who've been in the scene a few years longer than me, and they were like, "Oh, the community is dying, the community is dead." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe I honestly don't know if it's shrinking. I like it was booming, I guess, during the pandemic, and I didn't even catch on until after the pandemic was over. But like I don't know if it's necessarily that it's dissolving. It's just I think that the growth has slowed down, partially just because we're no longer all trapped indoors. But like I don't know. I again also Instagram, and it's just not as easy to like see things booming.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's in kind of a holding pattern that includes, makers, people. I've seen a few brands kind of like make an exit because, it's like it's harder to make a living if you're not selling anything when there's no
Yeah.
people buying stuff. So I think that's a tough one if you're a business. But as far as the enthusiasts go, like they're all still there. You just got to figure out a way to
Yeah.
share.
And I mean, also that's why we've seen businesses all move towards aluminum because that's what has been selling. But I don't know if that was always necessarily the right move for everyone. But like, it's always interesting to see how makers move and adapt, especially with how long you've been making ballad songs for literally almost 2 decades. It's really great to see that you're still at it and you're still pushing forward and you're still making really great ballad songs.
Yeah, no,
So,
thank you, Chell. Appreciate that. And I think, well, what I'm excited to see from the makers end, including myself, is collaborations. Um, you kind of when you have situations like these, there's always opportunities. I'm working on a few exciting collaborations. Some being like clothing, some being
what?
accessories, some being a knife that could be coming out. And, and those, to me, it's like those are exciting. And it's a product you know, um, of where the market's at and everything. So, there's still opportunities for that. So I think those are exciting. I think a lot of the makers and brands being friendly with each other, that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think hopefully by Blade Show or maybe later this year, we'll see a few announcements.
All right. Well, I'm very excited to see what this is that you're teasing. I'll certainly keep an eye out on your Instagram and see what you post eventually. But I guess with that, thank you for tuning into this episode of Balisong Meet the Makers. Like and subscribe. Um, Click the bell for the notifications. And Jerry, where can people find you and your wares? Where can people buy your knives and follow you?
Yeah, Blade HQ, Instagram and Facebook, you just got to search harder. Um,
I assume Jerry Hom.
yeah, Jerry Hom Design is on Instagram, and you have to type in exactly just like that, and then Facebook, it's also there. And you can always shoot an email over, any which way.
It seems that your website is also homdesign.com, and I will include these links. So, yeah, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Links will be provided in the description. And with that, see you next time. Happy flipping, everyone. Oh, God, I wish I could flip with my left hand.